Hello, beautiful friends. This is Suyana, and I'm doing a reading for humanity. I have several different decks of cards laid out today, and I will be picking them as I'm guided. I invite everyone who's listening right now just to take a few deep breaths. And connect with the most dominant questions or reasons that you decided to listen to this audio and pick this video. Your intention, since there's no time really or space, if you really think about it, drive the message. And so I'm taking a few moments and asking you to take a few moments to really touch in on what is drawing a lot of your attention and intention these days or right now. So that this reading and this information can be of the most value to you. And it looks like the first deck is the Power Animal Oracle cards from Stephen D. Farmer, PhD. So let's get those out and see what we're working with. I had 3 cards come out, so I will just feel into that and see if any of those are the ones for us to pull from. And we have the Deer Pathfinder. Trust your instincts to guide you through this situation. So I love that this is the first card coming out, because this is a lot of the information that I'm getting, even when I'm exposing myself to tarot readings or astrological videos, anything coming about the themes and the tones and the energies that are prevalent in the collective. I really am getting a strong message to trust my own inner guidance system and seek the most personal, unique, and appropriate information that is meant just for me. And all of these cards that I'll be sharing with you, or anyone sharing with you, all of the astrological information that people might share is still being filtered through their own perception of reality. And it's important for me, as I'm doing this, for you to remember that, and for me to always honor and respect that. Because these messages are profound reminders for us to share in the process of evolution and discovery with the things that we feel drawn to, and then sift those things that we expose ourselves to through our own inner knowing, through our own inner guidance system, through our own unique perception of reality. And so I see this deer, and I see the message related to it, and that's exactly the foundation that I would like our relationship to be built on. So let's move forward. I'm gonna look at the bottom of the deck, and I see the horse, freedom. You always have a choice. So, bam. That is what that's all about. And just out of curiosity, I'm going to cut the deck and see what is there. We have the beaver, productivity, productiveness. Go ahead and just do it. So yeah, the culmination of these messages: go within, trust your instincts, be confident in the things that you're knowing, and then seeking out information to validate that. Hopefully that's exactly what this is for you, is just validation and confirmation for you to trust yourself, Know that you have free will. Know that it's your choice with whatever you want to do, with whatever information you're exposed to. And then take inspired action and let those inner knowings and inner promptings move into the action steps and the things that you do throughout your day, the thoughts that you continue to give momentum to and hold on to, the emotions that you let drive your awareness. Let all of those things inform your action steps. Okay, are we done with the animal cards? I just wanted to cut it one more time. And here we have the dove. Serenity. Slow down. Pause. And breathe. Slow down, pause, and breathe. Okay, so that feels very complete. This is a whole cycle that is being expressed right here. Trust your instincts. Know that you have free will and free choice. Move your inner guidance system and your ability to act through free will into productivity and productiveness. And then be gentle. Take care of yourself. Walk one gentle, loving step at a time. Even if you're very passionate with what you're doing, even if you really feel a lot of enthusiastic energy, which I do oftentimes, I just get so excited about all the potential of the reality that we're in. It still is really important for me to continue to remember to take deep breaths and orient myself in my body, pay attention to what my body is saying it needs. It's the most dense part of myself. It's my physical connection to this particular realm of existence, and it requires my stewardship and my care and my loving attention on a regular basis. And so when I see the Serenity card in the context of all of these other cards, that's just what it reminds me of, the need to find that stillness and then repeat the cycle. Go in, trust my instincts, remember that I have free will, remember that I have a choice, remember that ultimately I am in a physical reality. I am in a physically manifested existence right now. And that requires that I take all of this inspiration and vision and apply it in an inspired way into action. And that's where the beaver comes in, to be productive. Just go ahead, just do it. And then slow down, pause, and breathe. And hopefully you can see through this cycle how present this is. How present and in the now all of this is. It's such a really beautiful way to start this reading. Okay, so that feels very complete. And we'll be moving on to another deck. I'm just starting to do these things, so I will be recording the cards being pulled after I figure out how to do the audio on it. So just bear with me and my learning curve. Thank you so much. All right, so now that we have these beautiful animal cards to give us the foundation of our reading and really our relationship, since this is our first reading and my first reading together, I am going to go ahead and move to the next deck that I feel called to, which is the Caroline Myss Archetype Cards. So I think it's really great to use these when you're wanting to see what kind of energies are really dominant in your wheelhouse of personalities. We all have aspects of ourself that become more dominant and in the limelight, if you will, at certain points, and then at other times they kind of take a back seat. I like to think of them as riders on a bus. Sometimes you have, maybe the mother archetype driving the bus when you have young children, or you have the warrior archetype, highly dominant when you really feel the need to like stand up and fight for something that you're trying to achieve or accomplish or conquer. So I'm going to pull some of these archetype cards and see what insights we can get in relationship to whatever might be present in your awareness right now, and also for humanity in general. Okay, so our first one is mentor. The light attributes of the mentor in this deck is passing on wisdom and refining a student's character. Passing on wisdom and refining a student's character. The shadow attributes inability to allow the student to move on to the role of master, imparting false instructions. Wow, this one really brings up a lot of awareness for me around what we are, transcending in our culture in general is, false prophets, and what is coming out is like mentally ill leaders. Like people who have really become so attached to their role of influence that they've lost sight of their oneness. And, every student is a teacher, and every teacher is also a student if they're coming from their light attribute. We all have things to offer, and we all have things to receive. So a reciprocal, mutually beneficial relationship is our most natural, aligned, and uplifting state to be in. And again, we play different roles for different people, but ultimately we're all gaining or losing based on how aligned we are with being in harmony with the giving and the receiving. So the mentor card is something that's very, very dominant right now, I think, in our culture. And we're becoming so aware of how unhealthy it is for people to have the level of influence and power and control that they can have in these very high level positions in our society. It's not good for anyone. So I am getting the sense of the us and them energy kind of getting like tapped on and like peaked as I'm talking about this. And again, the wholesome approach when we're thinking about the mentor is that we want the best for the mentor too, or the leader or the influencer. We want them to be able to stay humbled in their role. And when that is not possible, it's time for that person to step down and get reharmonized with the collective, with the energy of oneness, with mutual benefit, without fear driving the narrative and the choices and the decisions. Because when fear is driving it at a very high level, you can see how it could impact an entire collective culture. And for me personally too, the mentor card, which might be true for you as well, is popping up because I think that there are a lot of us out there who have a lot of really loving, kind, gentle, nourishing messages to share with one another and to bring more and more and more into the dominant narrative in our communities. And we might just be sitting on the sidelines a little bit. So I know that applies to me at times, and I have no intention of telling anyone how to live or what to do. So that's my shadow relationship with the mentor, is that I am so connected to the idea of free will and how sovereign we all are that I would never want to overpower anyone or take anyone's power away. And I certainly wouldn't want anyone to give me their power. in the hopes of achieving some relief or some end that they're trying to accomplish. So the mentor energy for me is, on a personal note, really stepping in for those of us that know we have things to offer, but we really want to do it from this very humbled place. And also to be very compassionate towards people who may be playing out the shadow attributes of the mentor energy and need to be, acclimated to a healthier dynamic in their culture, in their community, and within themselves. So, okay, we have the mentor energy. And let's see what we have next. Wow, okay, liberator. All right, the light attributes of the liberator are freeing yourself and others from outmoded beliefs, releasing negative thought patterns. So, what I just said, basically, I love it. And the shadow attributes, imposing your own tyranny over those you claim to liberate, ignoring legitimate constraints. So, yeah, I think the mentor and the liberator are companion cards for sure. That is very much in harmony with what we're all talking about. And if we just venture back into the cards that we got from the animal, the animal cards, the oracle cards, the power animal cards, that is exactly the approach to be liberated out of being influenced by those mentors or those liberators that are in their shadow energies and their shadow orientations. Trust your instincts. You always have a choice. Go ahead and act on your own inner instincts, knowing that it's your own free will, and remember to slow down, pause, breathe, and check in with yourself. And I would add to that, to let love and compassion drive your perceptions of everything, including people who might be really strongly oriented in their shadow aspects. Because every shadow has a light, and every light casts a shadow. So they're and both energies. They're there so that we can see the cyclical nature of life. And honestly, I think as well understand the nature of consciousness. It's not stagnant, it's not set, it's not fixed. It's at times fixed, it's at times mutable, it's at times in transition, it's in times at rebirth. Everything has a cycle to it. So all of these things are building towards the next cycle, and we can be contributors to that cycle based on our process of interacting with it. So, all right. Onward and upward. What's our next one? Dilettante. Okay, light attributes is delights in the arts without having to be a professional. Alerts you to the dangers of becoming superficial in your pursuits. Shadow attributes. Pretension to much deeper knowledge than you actually possess. Okay. Yeah, so, this is basically about keeping it real. And I love that this is following the mentor and the liberator, because we, as a collective, we are very much figuring out ways of reclaiming our sovereignty. And there is a part of that process is very much finger pointing. Why did you do this? How could you do this? What's wrong with you? You're bad. You're inappropriate. You shouldn't exist, right? Anything that we feel is oppressing us, suppressing us, objectifying us, demeaning us, enslaving us, get rid of it. It's bad. It's evil. It's demonic. All of these things. So this card for me is really playing into the idea that no one can cast the first stone. We all have parts of ourselves that are in an evolutionary state. We all have parts of ourselves that are wholesome and full of light. And that is the majority of all of us as well. But the shadow attributes, we all have shadows. So it's about not pretending that you are this perfect divine being that has no flaws, pure without any flaws. So yeah, I'm not really sure what else to say about that, except for that it's another call to be humble and to remember that we are whole, complete people. And as such, we all have things that we're still strengthening in our character and how we show up in the world. And the more authentic and vulnerable and true we can be with one another and ourselves, the more all of these shadow attributes can be brought back into the light and liberated. Yes, so mentor, liberator, and dilettante. And underneath the dilettante was the addict, which we all can recognize that. Okay, so the light attribute of the addict helps you recognize and confront addictive behaviors. And I would also like to add for addictive behaviors like modes of distraction, because we all have modes of distraction. Those things that we do to avoid being still, being quiet, checking in, being with ourselves, not being stimulated from anything external. So those are all of our distractions. Even at some point, if you've really honed in on creating a very spiritually oriented ego, your spiritual practices can become addictions because they're distracting you from letting all of the truth be revealed to you, all the truth of yourself and all the truth of everything in your reality, everything in your existence. So this is really great to add to the dilettante, because sometimes what we're addicted to is our judgments and our righteousness and our points of view and our opinions about things. And we are in such a state of flux as a species. We're in such a dynamic process of transformation that all of this can be very fluid right now. And it is a lot easier, I think, on the nervous system, the body, the mind, and the emotions to be very fluid with your perceptions of reality. So our final card here, what is it? Okay. Did not see that coming. Okay, shapeshifter and the damsel. Okay, so damsel here is the light attributes of damsel, understanding the nature of healthy romance, inspires you to rely on yourself. Okay, so again, I would say that this goes back to how we're all constantly, as this culture, we've been really entrained to externalize our sense of value. And the damsel is very much a representation of that. The shadow attributes, waiting for a knight to provide for you, seduction by romantic illusion. Yeah, and this can be any way that we kind of manipulate people to get the things that we need. And we know we're doing it. We know when it feels impure most of the time. I think that that's really true, where we kind of just, we know that something's off. And this is a very heightened state of survival mode. So it's, again, not something to really be judged. It's so valuable to kind of come to the root. Why am I behaving in this damsel energy? It's probably because I'm afraid. I'm in survival mode. I think that I'm going to be annihilated if I don't have my needs met. And since for some reason I don't think I can do it for myself, I'm going to seek it out from an external source and then use whatever means necessary to achieve that end. And this is just pointing for me to how much we as a culture are in survival mode. As a community, it's so prevalent. It's really, really strong. And yeah, I would say it's one of the most dominant energies of our time. And the reason being is because it's one of the things that's really going through a major transformation, which I'll talk about in a later video. But suffice to say, we are definitely moving out of survival mode. And the speed at which that happens is going to be based on how all of us individually can start to embody some of these messages that have come through. Being loving and compassionate to people who are oriented into their shadow attributes, noting where we're in our shadow attributes, being truthful and vulnerable and authentic with the people around us, understanding that we don't have any middleman that we need to go through in order to have our needs met, and yet we will be doing a lot of collaborating. Relationships are going to become more and more and more important moving forward. And so there is a purifying process that needs to take place in order for us to have those relationships be healthy, mutually beneficial, collaborative energies. Yep. And the shapeshifter, our final archetype card, light attributes, skill at navigating through different levels of consciousness, ability to see the potential in everything. Okay, so I've been listening to a lot of card readings and astrology. I mentioned earlier in the last couple of weeks. It's just been I've been feeling really drawn to it. And shapeshifter is one of the messages that keeps coming up over and over and over and over again. And I think a lot of it for me has to do with seeing the potential in everything. So if that resonates for you, that is another really, really great way of staying open and flexible and fluid with your perception of reality, to see the potential in everything. So the shadow attribute is projecting any image that serves your personal agenda in the moment. And I got to show you these cards the way that I've laid them out, because the shapeshifter is right next to the damsel and the addict is right next to the dilettante. So projecting any images that serve your potential agenda in the moment is the shadow attribute of the shapeshifter. And if we can go back and see what the shadow attribute of the damsel is: waiting for a knight to provide for you, seduction by romantic illusion. So that goes hand in hand. You know, when we're in survival mode and we are fearing for our quality of life being threatened, then we can convince ourselves of a lot of things that we know aren't true, but that will comfort us in our process of trying to get what we think we need or want from someone else. And you can tell when it doesn't feel right. If the other person is resentful, hesitant, resistant, all of those energies mean there is not a complete harmony happening. And we can check in with ourselves when those things start to happen, for the other person and for us. Because if you are a damsel, asking another person who's in that same damsel energy of, oh my gosh, how am I going to survive? Like, both of you pose a threat to each other. And both of you can be an asset to each other. But when there's all this muddled up energy, it's a shadow asset energy. So it's using one another for your own personal gains. It's not mutually beneficial. And it taps into that addictive quality too, where What are we trying to be rescued from? What are we trying to be saved from? What's out there that is immediately trying to create harm to us that is driving us into these shadow attributes? And this is another really important thing with this entire reading is when you are being very present, you can start to differentiate what are immediate needs and what are perceived needs and what are fear-based needs. And all of those things have very different energy. So I'll leave a link at the bottom of this video, and it will be tied into the last part of the reading that I did today, which includes Matt Kahn mantra cards to tie everything together and give you a completion on this reading that I've shared today. I have really felt so privileged to be able to connect with you in this way, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the future. Thank you so much for being part of my first reading, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.